We might think of Maeve as the granddaughter of Morgan, as she certainly carried on the family tradition, becoming known for the most famous battle in early Irish literature, the Raid of Cooley, called simply the Táin. So just earlier when we were talking about the cave, you were kidding me then?
I was kidding you.
And then the most famous epic, and it seems to be this from the signs I see around here, and I'm not sure, I know I'm not saying the word right, I'm calling it the Táin, but give me the right word for this.
Táin.
Táin?
Táin. As in something's torn in two.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems like, you know, that's the one epic that came down, and there's probably maybe thousands of other stories about QueenMedb or Goddess Maeve that got lost. And then this story was written, as I understand it, by the Christian scribes and maybe edited somewhat. And we've got what we've got.
Heavily edited.
Right. So now remind me, Maeve wanted this other bull. The brown bull. I forget. Did she have a white one but she wanted this other one. But I forget now why it was so important.
Right.
And why either she tried to buy it. Anyway, I'll let you tell.
Ailill had this bull, Fionn Venach, the white bull. Maeve didn't have the equal of that in her herd of cattle. Well, this really annoyed Maeve because when this bull was a calf, it was born to one of her cows. But the calf made its own way over into Ailill's herd. Now, the reason that it was important for these guys to compare the wealth was in the royal assignations in those days, it wasn't necessarily the man or the woman who would have the running of the kingdom. It was whichever the two of them brought most to the union. Whoever was the richest person is the one that would be able to make most of the rules and regulations. So, Maeve was losing out to Ailill because he had this bull. She decided to send two of the messengers all around the country and see if they could find the equal of this bull. So Maeve wanted to either borrow it, to buy it, whichever way she could get hold of it. So the two of the servants, they headed up north, and they ended up in Louth, in a place called Cooley, and they were talking to a guy by the name of Dara. And they said to King Dara, Maeve wants to borrow this bull. She'll rent it. She'll do whatever she needs to get hold of the bull. And, again, this is showing the sexuality of the goddess and the queen. If you bring the bull down yourself, she'll even give you her friendly thighs. So Dara jumps up and down with joy. He says, lovely, I'll bring the bull down, I'm happy to do it. The problem is these two messengers got so well watered and so drunk, one opened his mouth to the other and said, do you know, it was nice that Dara's going to give us the bull, but, you know, would have taken it anyway. Dara goes, that's it, deal's off. I want nothing to do with that woman. Now, Maeve, she wasn't bothered that the two guys had made a mess of it, because she, being the warrior queen herself, you know, she had option B. And option B was to get the warriors from Connacht, the warriors from Munster, and the warriors from Leinster. Maeve was saying to her charioteer, there are people that are going to be so mad with me when we get back, because some of these people aren't going to return. There's going to be wives and there's going to be kids without fathers after this. And the charioteer said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Before we set off, we'll draw down the power of the sun. And in those days, to draw down the power from the sun, what you would do is you would turn gishel, which is clockwise. So the charioteer pulled the reins, and as the chariot was moving around clockwise, there was a woman in front of the horse, and she stopped the horse, and the charioteer says, who are you? And this woman says, I'm Fidalma, I'm from the cave, I'm the prophetess. And Maeve was saying, well, prophetess, what do you see in the future? And she looks into the future and she says, I see crimson, I see red. Maeve goes, what? I see crimson, I see red. Now that didn't do Maeve's confidence any good at all, because I see crimson, I see red obviously means there's going to be an awful lot of bloodshed. So with that fear in her heart, she set out. And the story goes on and on and on. This is when they're on the way over to Cooley. Halfway up there, they meet a guy by the name of Cuchulainn, and Cuchulainn is the Ulster hero. Now, even as a kid of 7 or 8 years old, he could punch his fist through a man's skull at the front, and it would come out at the back. Such was his legendary powers. But this guy was very, very skilled as a warrior. And as Maeve and Ailill were sending their guys out to meet Cuchulainn on the hills and in the rivers, he was killing them left, right and centre. He even ended up killing his half-brother Ferdia Ferdia was Maeve's champion, and through various offers and enticements, Ferdia decided to go up against his half-brother Cuchulainn. Cuchulainn didn't want to fight him, but such was the need for battle and the need to keep face with Queen Maeve. Ferdia still went for it. But there's loads of fights went on. Ultimately, Cuchulainn, after a matter of weeks, was overpowered and he was killed.
But wasn't it by some kind of magic and sorcery? It wasn't really maybe, a mortal death, and right.
Involved all the way through.
Because there's more story about Queen Maeve. Didn't she have 7 sons, and she kind of named them all the same and put them, to kill this enemy that she perceived?
Yeah, she did. She sent her sons up. She sent all manner of family up, people who were near and dear to her, people who were close to her. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of bloodshed. There was a lot of life lost there. Ultimately, they did get the bull, and they brought the bull back to Rathcroghan, up to a place called Bratnadarv, which is the fort now known as the Fort of the Bulls.
So when you're saying that, she won at a big loss.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to get to why was this so important?
Right.
Psychically wise for all of us, or she ends up with this bull.
Yeah.
And somehow gives it back to humanity.
Pride was an awful lot of it in the first place. Now, how the story would have evolved as an oral tradition and how it would have ended, we don't know. Because, we're not all we have is a written record. I'm sure that, as I said earlier, it's been twisted from its original ending. She brings the bull back, and they put these 2 bulls in the same fort. And talking about big things, if you put 2,000-3,000 pound testosterone-filled beasts in the same area, it's going to happen. It's going to kick off, and it did, big style. And these 2 bulls, they fought, tooth, horn, nail, hoof. They just went for it. And the battle was that furious and that fierce that even the hardened of the warriors wouldn't stand on the edge of the Rath and watch. They went up onto the neighbouring hillsides to watch it all happen. Ultimately, Don Culnia, who is the bull from Ulster, the brown bull, he kills Fionn Vennick. And he gets him on his horns. And he's seen in the next dawn with bits of the local bull, Fionn Vennick, on his horns. He's dripping in blood. So this bull, Don Culnia, he decides to make his own way back up to Ulster from where he came. But when he got home, or on his way up home, because of the exertion, his heart gave out. It burst, and he died. So there'd been an epic battle between Queen Maeve and Ulster. Cuchulainn had killed his half-brother Ferdia. Various members of families had been killed. There was 2 bulls, which both ended up dead. So you can only make an assumption when the monks wrote it down that they were talking about the futility of war. Because all of this, in the way the story is written down, achieves nothing. Now, from a Celtic point of view, if you were telling this story around the fire a few hundred years before it's been written down, you'd be talking about the heroic deeds that were done. And this guy died with valour. He died proud. It's not a matter of the fact that he died, because in early Celtic society, when you died, you were just reborn again. So the Celts didn't fear death. They would go into battle completely naked, apart from a torque, a necklace, and obviously all the weaponry and the shields that they take with them. So they didn't fear death. So that's the way the story ends these days.